What's up, humans? Welcome to the Human Music Podcast. I'm Luke Rain. My co-hosts are Tesco and Rip Kinney, and we are all music producers, artists, and producer coaches. This show is where we discuss all things music production and interview amazing creatives about their origins, their process, and whatever else comes up. This week is episode 98, UNK Moves the Musical Energy Flow. UNK is back as our first ever 3-time guest. In 2021, he took an introspective break away from music, and he opened up about the mental struggles of getting back into the swing of writing. But he says he's back with an evolved style that is more melodic but still super bassy. We also talk about his song editing process, sound design approach, breaking rules, workflow, and the debate over engineering your own records. The song of the week is Trapezoid. You can hear that behind me. That's ill.Gates and UNK, and there's links down below to go stream or buy that. Please support the artists. And you can support our sponsors, Dojo TV, where you can get free producer live stream classes from the Producer Dojo Senseis, Tesco's Patreon, where you can get educational content, project files, behind the scenes footage, and access to his Discord, track feedback, and private lessons. The weekly download, where you can learn from ill.Gates and his private weekly group lessons, and get access to over 250 more episodes in the archive for just $20 a month. And guest practices, where you can learn from Seth Drake at the Approach Institute. He's the best engineer we know, and over there, your first class is free. You can go to thehumanmusicpodcast.com to find our socials, some free sound packs, and all the rest of our episodes and streaming. But without further ado, let's get on into the episode with UNK.
Hello, people of Earth. This is Tesco with Rip Kenny and Trap Jesus, and you're listening to the Human Music Podcast. Woo!
Human Music Podcast. I like it.
I feel like I'm on like a game show of some kind.
Bum, 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 bum. UNK, come on down. Better not bid $1, bro.
Funny you say
Watch
that
me.
because first challenge is the salmon ladder.
Hey, man, that sounds like the exact opposite of Plinko. You got to climb back up the Plinko board. Hey, so what's up, humans in the chat? Guess what? We got our all-time most guestiest guest back on the Human Music Podcast. True. Our third appearance of the legendary Oh
my God! Oh my
Good times the charm, baby.
Oh my God!
Yee! I'm super excited to have you back, man. I was looking, I had to look, I knew it, it didn't seem like that long since we talked on here, but I actually looked back through the archives, and it was actually way back still in 2020 that we talked. That's a mind fuck.
I still can't believe that.
Yeah, it's a trip to me, man. Like, yeah, you were the last episode we dropped in 2020. It was December 29th, 2020. Back in the olden times.
Yeah, geez, in the before times.
When we thought the pandemic would end someday.
I feel like I've aged. I guess I have aged like 2 years.
Yeah, at the very least, we've all aged at least 2 years since that 1 year of life happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, we got you back, man. And you wanna tell the people anything that you're excited about going on right now? What's up?
I mean, I made a post pretty recently. I started working on music pretty recently. I had taken a quite some time, couple months long hiatus. I think it was like 9 months, and I had like attempted to write music a few times in there, but then was like, nah, I'm gonna keep taking a break. But I started, I don't know, nothing too exciting other than like exciting to me. I've been writing some songs that I really like. It's kind of hard to explain. I don't want to say it's like a new style because it still sounds exactly like all of my other music, but it's like it's evolved. I think people like to say my style is evolving.
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's not, it's getting stale. So, right, you got to do one or the other.
I don't on it like oh man, there's just like the last year has been so much like thinking and like I don't want to use the word interpersonal, but just like lots of quiet time and lots of thinking, both like seeing something in the industry or on Twitter or in the news and like ingesting it, or just while like writing music pretty recently. Just been like a very, very introspective. Not that it wasn't before, but just like way more so than usual, if that makes
Yeah.
any sense. Just like really diving deep.
So does that mean the new stuff is like more melodic and thoughtful?
Some of it,
or-
yes.
Okay.
Some of it, no. So it's hard for me to put like a total number count on what I have that's unreleased right now because, you know, varying degrees of completion. But
Yeah.
I can tell you some like rough numbers. My friend, who I've wrote like 6 songs with or something, we're going to do an EP. He's flying in Valentine's Day weekend so we can finish up some songs and like get them all ready.
For all you bass lovers out there.
Yeah, exactly. 2 of them are very melodic. They're still like bass music, but more melody than you've ever heard out of an Unk song, 100%.
Hey, here for it.
And then, like, aside from that, non-collabs, there's still like at least 2 or 3 other pretty melodic ones. And then, like, recently, within the last 2 weeks, there's probably like 4. It's hard to call them melodic. They still sound like very dark and very heavy, but there are arpeggiators in them. So that
Yeah,
like
naturally.
yeah. I've gotten a lot better. I'm like, I don't know. The way some people talk to me, I feel like sometimes they fail to realize that I'm still very new at producing, even though I'm like 3 years in now or something like that. I still don't. I feel like I don't know anything. Like everybody feels that way, but like I'm learning how to like sandwich in. My biggest problem with mixes ever is always like trying to put way too many things into a small space. And I'm still doing that. I'm just getting way better at doing it because you have to like think about how you're going to do it.
How am I gonna make this mess of a million tracks into a coherent mix?
Yeah, basically I have figured out that I can put melodies on top of what I normally like to write in a way that like I don't know. They're very cool. I've like a lot of writing music is me being like, man, how did such and such person do like this thing or make this kind of sound, or like what goes into why this song is good. And it's not like I'm sitting there like trying to figure out how one person does everything, but I'll pick something from like each person. Like one of the things I really like about Rip Kenny's stuff is or Evan's stuff is like his distortions. When I distort stuff, it doesn't sound like when he does it. And it's like, I don't know, that's like a thing that I like of his, and I'll sit down for like a whole day and try and figure out how to do that. And I've been doing that
I
a
like
lot.
your distortion too, man. I really do.
Aww.
It's touching.
Yeah, I don't know. I've just I feel like I'm just constantly leveling up now. There were like 2 weeks when I started writing again where I was like, I lost it. I don't have the sauce anymore. It's over. Like it's done.
Oh, nobody else has ever been there, taken a break and then felt like they had lost everything. Oh, except me and
Yeah.
this guy
Yeah,
and probably
me.
that guy right there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
even after
It's
no
like
break.
every other week, even when you're in like a hot streak, you write
Yeah.
one weird thing and you're like,
Yeah.
fuck, do I suck now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you're in a little slump and you're like, it's over. I guess I'll just make some bullshit. And then it's amazing and you're like,
Yeah,
I got
exactly.
it! Mom, it's gonna be okay.
You know
beautiful
what
circle of
actually
life.
really helped me is I have a really unorganized official song projects folder. It's like all of my works in progress or whatever. I am slowly migrating to a different machine, and I was like, oh, I need to collect all and save all of these because I'm an asshole and I haven't done that already, and I need to make sure I do that. So I'm going through them from like 3 years ago till now. There's probably like, I don't know, 200 projects in there, varying degrees of completion. And as I'm doing it, I'm like hearing all these cool ideas that I literally don't even remember starting. And then one of them, which was just a like a 16 bar loop with no intro or anything after it, I was like, man, this is like really hard and awesome, but it's not a song. And then I was like, oh, let's just try and add some shit to it. And this was last Friday or Saturday. And then like 12 hours later, I haven't like eaten food. I'm just like sitting there. It's like 4 a.m. and I'm like, whoa, I finished a song after like a year of not being able to fucking do that. And now I just like, I don't know. The song is, I don't want to say it's still like fresh. So I really like, man, there's just so much that I've learned. Here's something else. Writing songs not on deadline, but like I was trying to do like a song a month releasing, like steady pace or whatever. I don't give a shit about any of that anymore. What I like doing and the way I like writing and what was working for me before and was still making me work fast, but like just ignoring the time completely, is I'll start working on a song. If I really like it, I just like obsess over it over like a week or so, the next few days, listening to it every day, like walking the dog. And I'm like, I don't like this part. I don't like that part. This fill needs to be better. Intro is not interesting enough. And I'll just like remember that. And then I'll listen the second day. Once I have like a firm grasp of these are the spots that I think need to be fixed, then I go try and write it again. And then for like a couple days, I obsess over, and I just like do that. And usually within 2 weeks or less, usually sometimes it's like 2 days, but I'll just finish the song then, and I'll know that it was good because I'm not thinking about anything other than the song. Like no Twitter content for the day, no I need a song by next month, or like people are going to stop paying attention. No, this working with this person is better than this person. Like none of that, just like the song. And I don't know, I'm really enjoying just getting back to just writing music, because that's the part about music that I like, is writing the music, even more so probably than playing shows. Those are fun, don't get me wrong. I like enjoy when I'm up there, but like flying there, being out late, the crowd, I don't mean like the people in the crowd, but like just large crowds, you know, all of that is just like I could do without that. Especially more now it's after COVID and stuff, like man, priorities and viewpoints have just changed on like so many different things. Sorry, I'm kind of going off on a million tangents.
Fine, man. That's literally what our show's built on. Yeah,
that's literally the point of this.
Yeah,
I totally agree with you though. Like the best part of all of this is like writing a song that you actually enjoy yourself.
Yeah, getting
and like
excited about it.
Yeah, that feeling of like writing something and it's like getting better and better, and you're like, oh, this is so fun. Like that's literally the whole reason I do it, at least. Sounds like you're the same.
Yeah.
I'm curious about what you said there. Sorry if did you have a point?
No, I have a follow-up question, so I'll wait.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to ask, because you said, when you go walk, you said you don't write stuff down. Is that a very intentional thing?
No,
in terms of seeing how you memorize, like.
No, not really. Like I sometimes I try and write stuff down. Like I think I have a notepad open on my desktop right now. My problem is somewhere around 18 years old, when I started smoking weed, I went from like the most anal, my mouse and desk need to be in like the exact same position and everything like spotless, to the most disorganized person you've ever met in your entire life.
Weird.
But if you've ever like built a Lego, you know, my place like is clean enough right now, but generally speaking, I have like a photographic memory, but in a weird way. Like I have like piles of shit, but I can tell you if you say where is the such and such, which pile it's gonna be in. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I literally do the same shit, like with clothes, stuff on my desk. Like it's all the same. Like I know what piles it, and then like if someone like cleans up the pile, my life is ruined. I'm like, where did the thing? Like now I have no concept of where it could be ever.
Exactly. Creative genius.
So where's the thing?
Yeah, exactly. So like I try and write down notes for this kind of stuff, but like I find myself never looking back at the note until a year and a half later and being like, oh, what's in here? And it's like, I don't know. I just like, if I'm thinking about the song, I'm just going to remember. If it's like a list of shit that needs to be done, or like very specific things for like a mix down, that's fine. But like the specific song I'm talking about, which I have open right now, in the first drop, when the drop hits, it's like, you know, first phrase, I want to say it's like 8 bars. That 8 bar fill, connection, whatever you want to call it, to the next 8 bars is trash right now. So I know like in the song, I'm like if I'm not thinking about the song and I'm just enjoying it, it's good. And when I like get taken out of the enjoyment and I'm like, that sounded a little strange, I like make note that that's what I got to go look at. The writing down, if anybody's listening to this, you should write it down so that you don't forget. Don't do what I do.
That's so funny though. Like I like literally my brain works the same way. Like I will write stuff down because I'm like, oh, I need, like, if I'm listening to it and I'm thinking this, like I need to write it down. But I don't forget. Like if I notice something that's bothering me about a song, like it doesn't matter if I wrote it down or not. Like you play it again so many times, that thought's already triggered in your head. Like it's gonna get triggered again.
Yeah.
Like without fail, that it works for me. I mean,
and if it doesn't, was it that big of a deal in the song? Like, if you think of like, oh, I hate that snare, and then like the next day you get into the project and you think nothing about the snare, it's probably not that bad of a snare.
No, 100%. And to what you just said about the snare, I'd say more so all this stuff is how the fuck do you say this word? Compositional.
Yeah.
Not like or sometimes it's fix this one sound, but usually it's compositionally in the song, like here is which part of the song doesn't I've talked to like a couple people on SoundCloud in the last few months or something. I've met a lot of people who I'll message some guy with 100 followers because I'm like, yo, I really like your shit, but it sounds like you're not writing full songs, or you have this really cool idea but it like falls apart here. And I'll ask them about something I find interesting with their music, and they're always asking me how to get better at like writing progressions. I don't mean chord progressions. I just mean like essentially connecting the parts of the song and like writing a song. I don't have
you do the transitions.
Yeah, I don't have like a document to be like, here's how you do it. But I'll just tell them
the PDF,
like what I'm explaining to you guys, and like you can just hear when you're like, this part's not that great. It needs to like, you need to like telegraph what's coming next without doing that. It's very weird.
Yeah, building anticipation and expectation is really subtle art in music production, where you've got to like let people know that it's coming without smacking them in the face with it, and also not have it be exactly what they expect. There's a dance there. You got to like find the overlap of the multiple Venn diagram.
Sure. Or like if you ever heard a song and you're like, oh, this is kind of repetitive and that's why I don't enjoy it. That like feeling you get while it's repeating and you're like, oh, it's just the same thing. It's like when you notice that, you're like, all right, that's the part that needs to change.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I would say the one thing, well, actually two. I was thinking that the one thing I've actually written down before that does matter is like when I'm thinking about or listening to a song and I have an idea, maybe it's not even when I'm listening to the song. It's like when I'm sitting watching TV, I'll have an idea for a specific way to do something or fix a problem or something to try. It's like use this plugin and do this and automate this thing. And like that's worth writing down. And also like when you're mixing something, you're like snare minus 1 dB, hi-hats plus 5 dB, and like you have a list of like little adjustments.
Yeah, sure.
Like that also helps. But yeah, I wanted to ask you, because one of the things that people asked about the most from your previous episodes is your sound design and how you go about it, kind of what your general process is. And I figured I'd let you just dive into that.
Sure. So I actually opened this project that I was working on recently because I was like, I don't know how to answer this question. I'm going to just look at a project and tell you how it goes or how I usually start. So as far as sound design goes, a lot of the time I watched a shitload of tutorials the last year because like at 3 a.m. when I can't fall asleep and I'm just scrolling on YouTube, I get a lot of music tutorials and I'll like find one that sounds cool and start a song by trying to make that sound or whatever. Or like starting with that kind of a sound. It'll be like, oh, the sickest respace ever. And you're like, all right, let's try it. Almost all of my actual from scratch sound design is in Serum. That's the thing I'm most comfortable with. The interface makes sense. It's very visual. It's easy to understand. A lot of presets for it. But almost every song that I write is, I mean, they're all different, but like, let's say the bass in this song, let me see, Serum. I'm going to open it right now. I started, what is this? I started with like this really basic preset. It's like down sampler or something or another. It doesn't do much. It's just like a sound. And then what I'll do is like after I'm scrolling through and I find something that I think sounds cool, I'll take a look at all the LFOs. I'll like slow them down, speed them up, see what that does to the sound. Then I'll sometimes swap out the wavetables. I'll fuck with like the coarse pitch stuff. Basically anything that has been programmed into the sound by whoever made the sound, I'll mess with to see how it affects it. And usually through doing that, immediately I'll hear like a really cool new sound, and then I'll try and like write a groove with that. This particular sound, I think what I did was I slowed down the LFOs. I don't know how specific you want me to get. I'm looking at the FX tab. I have an EQ, distortion, reverb, and a compressor on top of the sound, and then after it, I have just an EQ8 with a pretty gnarly, I don't even know how to describe what the fuck shape it is. I wish I could like share a screenshot, but it looks kind of like a mountain.
Right. A mountain of bass, naturally.
Yeah, a mountain of bass. A lot of the high end's taken off, but like, I don't know. Then I have that sound, and the rest of the basses in this song, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them, and each of these 5 is usually like 2-3 layers, are all that same exact sound I started with, but changed and different for this particular song.
Same, but different. Hey.
That's like and then some of these other basses have all kinds of other processing. I have like a fat rack on them, the Virtual Riot fat rack. If you don't know what that is, go look it up. You can do it with like U8A plugins or free plugins, I'm pretty sure. And yeah, like it's hard to explain. Like a lot of my sound design is just trying stuff and seeing how 2 different sounds work together. This particular song, a lot of the times when I do sound design, I'm like sound designing with a purpose. I'm not just like, hey, let's try and make some cool sounds. Like I'll have this groove and I'll be like, yeah, this is cool, but it's just like a beat right now. And there's no melody and it's empty. There's no width, there's no nothing. And I'll be like, you know what I need? I think I need to add some top end. So I'll duplicate the MIDI and then be like, all right, let's like high pass this halfway through the spectrum, and then let's try and either make some sounds with some basic saw waves and just add filters until something sounds cool, or grab some other sounds that somebody else made and then like high pass it and add distortion and be like, once I have like a high pitched like whine, it's like, that sounds gnarly. And I'm doing that a lot of the time while I'm playing the other sound, so I can hear how they're like going together.
Yeah. It makes sense.
And then once you hear something that like sounds cool, it's just like, all right, boom, that's it. I wish I could like play sound bites of this, like, you know, as we're doing this or whatever. A lot of other stuff. I'm trying to think of when I do like sound design on drums. I very recently started making my own snares. Prior to that, it was just like find a cool snare, add more layers, claps, whatever. Almost always I'm using the drum bus or some type of compression on the drums. I find like really like samples that have like shitty kicks in them, but they're like cool breakbeat things. You just like chop off most of the lows and then like layer those on top of like better kick drums or better snares.
Yeah, I love doing that.
Lots of filtering. Like you can take, man, this sounds so dumb, but like I know what filters are and I know what they do, but like pretty recently I had like this awesome sound with like all this high end, and then I was like, I don't remember why I put a filter on it, but I put it on it and then I like low passed it and brought it down, and I was like, whoa, this sounds so cool. But I like am rarely, I don't know, it sounds like I have no idea what I'm talking about, and that's how I feel. But like a lot of my sound design is just like moving shit and moving parameters and being like, whoa, that sounds even better now. And then like once you hear what it can do, you like dial it in, like move the EQs over, the Qs, whatever you want.
Amen. Sounds like you start more with like the exploration, find the happy accidents.
It's literally always exploration.
Once you get in the ballpark, then take the time to tweak it.
Yeah, sure. I think the best sound designers most likely are the ones that get to a good or great sound and still aren't afraid to break it by trying other stuff. I think a lot of people in their sound design get limited by like, oh, it's good, but if I keep screwing with it, it's going to get worse. Or like, you know, there's just like a point where like it, like you have it good and then you just kind of leave it there and then you get stuck on like how to make it better. But like the same way you got to something good or cool, like is this how you get to something great. You just like keep trying. And I really love what you said about the layering, because I think a lot of people have this conception that like this huge full sound is like this one thing coming from a synth. And that's like,
I used to think that it's just not the case.
It's just not the case. Like most of the time, if I have something that's like big and thick and full, it's like at least 2, maybe 3 layers, sometimes playing like different octaves and stuff. And then you just layer them in to taste to like get the texture that you want. But I mean, overall, I think what you said about your process is really helpful for everyone, taking the approach of starting with something that sounds good, but may not be your style or may not be doing the thing that you want to rhythmically or whatever. And then taking the automations and modulations that are in there and screwing with those to make something more you or make something cooler is like a great way to go about it, because you're not starting from scratch trying to make something like have all these cool movements. Like you're starting with something that has movement and then you make all of that stuff do cooler things. And then like you said about layering, I think that's plenty. I think that's really helpful. If you guys have any questions on sound design,
I got some right here.
Shit!
Are we like are we live right now?
Yeah, we're live, dog.
I did not know this. Okay.
Big up shot.
All right.
So we got a lot of good questions on sound design from our friend, your friend Gus.
Yes.
And so one is, do you have any like go-to macro things that you do inside of Serum? Like mapping specific parameters to macros is what I imagine.
Yes and no. I don't use macros a ton because I'm just automating the individual parameters. But like, I guess if you're just doing more than one thing, macro it. Mostly it's automating. I find myself mostly automating LFO speeds, changing shapes of LFOs, and then drawing automation for those changes in LFO speeds. Like, I don't know, it just makes more sense to me. Like you can like get like real detailed. If you like listen to, I'm trying to think of like a song of mine, Gang or Sandman. Mm-hmm. If you like listen to the like the whole bass groove, whatever you want to call that, like the sound is not changing that much. It's mostly just the notes getting like longer and shorter and moving in ways that like, it's the LFO speed. It's automating over time the LFO speed to like create new. You can pitch things up by making the LFO go faster. Then like once you're done drawing your shit and you have like your cool rhythm that like syncopates with the drums or just like works with the drums, bounce that to audio and then chop that up into small sections and then like draw pitch bends and shit in there. There's like an infinite number of possibilities of sounds. If you heard like Sandman on the one, every like it's like da-da-da-da, when the drop hits and it's like blah, and then like a bass comes in, the first part, that first note is literally almost the entire second drop, and then it's a different one for the first drop. There's one sound that just has like a series of different pitch bends and filter movements and reverbs and whatever, but like it's literally the same sound every time it hits.
Lit.
Yeah.
Lit.
It also works with like progressing, like when you're writing your song, you want the same, the 1, 2, 3, 4, like the phrases. What's the present? Yeah. Any variation of that, if you use the same sound and just alter it, you like almost can't go wrong. You just have to pay attention to like the order and whether or not it like, I don't know,
how the energy moves with it.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of what you're talking about today is like how to move the energy flow with using the same elements.
I mean, at the end of the day, I don't, aside from a small group of producers or people who are really into sound design, when somebody's at my show, no one gives a shit how I made the sound. Like at all, nor do I. I don't even remember how I made half of the songs. Yeah, all right, whatever. Yeah, we can keep going.
That's fair.
While we're on that note, I feel like the next question people usually have when it comes to sound design and resampling and making all these crazy sounds, do you have a separate sub that you then pitch bend to the sounds, or do you keep the sub baked in the sound?
Both. It really depends. A lot of the time, especially if I'm making a sound from scratch in Serum with like, 2 wavetables and I start with that, I'll have a sub with like direct out on there, or I'll duplicate it and then keep that same preset that I made, but now in a separate channel with the sub. Mm-hmm. But like sometimes I'll just have whether it be a sample or a bunch of layers that I've made. It depends on the sound. I try to have a separate sub, but sometimes even thinking about like drawing in the automation of the sub, I'm like, fuck it, I don't care.
Yeah.
Like
if it sounds good, it sounds good.
Yeah, as long as it sounds
like
cool.
Trying to separate them after you've got that like dope clip,
it just ruins
distortion, and you pull out the sub, and then the top end's just never the same. So you got to put them back together.
I mean, low pass your track and play it, and if it sounds fine and there's no crazy phasing and like the sub volume is relatively the same throughout, you're probably fine.
Yeah.
That was the last thing I was gonna ask is, do you just do the kind of 3 extremes test on that to make sure your low end is balanced throughout, or do you use any like oscilloscopes or anything like that?
Span, go watch Ahi's tutorial on Span, dude. That guy knows. So his tutorials are fast, they're quick, they explain what you need to know. I bought all of his racks and shit. His stuff's awesome.
Yeah, shouts to Ahi. His new song is awesome, a jam channel. Too.
Yeah.
I remember I was watching a tutorial, or like I think maybe even like a masterclass by Culprit. Do you guys know him? He's like neuro.
I think I've watched it. Yeah.
Yeah, D&B and stuff. I was mind blown because I always thought like your sub needs to be like relatively clean, like maybe some saturation or whatever. And he said something to the effect of like, in some of this wildly distorted music that I'm making in like D&B or whatever, like a clean sub sounds wrong to me.
Yeah.
And so like I need to keep the sub in the original sound and do whatever it takes to like multi-band split it and get the level right. Like first of all, he does the level of the sub on every song just by feel. He never looks at a meter ever. And then also he's like, yeah, just like for the heavily distorted music, like I need a distorted sub for it to sound right. And I still to this day have no concept of like how you get both, like how you consistently get a sub that's relatively in phase, that hits hard, that's also distorted. Like, but I guess it just goes to show like there's no one right way to do it, and you can make a lot of different ways work really well.
Does it move air and does it move humans? That's kind of the 2 questions you got to ask, right? Yeah, like if it does both of those things and it's a little out of phase.
For a little while, I was like beating myself up over not knowing some of the more technical parts of producing. But as soon as I I would be like, oh, you're never allowed to do this because like somebody had once told me that. And then I just started like doing all of those things and did not give a shit. A, my music got better, and B, like you learn through like doing the wrong thing. And then one of my most trusted like technical experts on the matters of mixing and mastering, who runs $1 million sound systems and knows exactly how to run them and everything. He basically was like, dude, if you have like a really good mix and master for your release on Beatport or Bandcamp or whatever, like that file, it really matters there because you're gonna be able to hear it. When you're at a fucking show, unless I'm not saying like it has to be mixed and mastered like pretty well, but like you're not going to be able to hear that much of a difference unless you like really know what you're listening for. So it's like, who the fuck cares? Plus, I don't like clean. I'm fighting with my mastering guy constantly. When I say fighting, I just mean like going back and forth. I'm like, it's too clean. I don't like it anymore. I have been debating the last few weeks whether or not I should mix and master all of my stuff myself for these upcoming like 20 releases or whatever. Not because I think I'm better, because I know it's going to be worse than if I paid somebody to do it, but I just like how it sounds more. And it's like, if it's not going to like blow up the club system or sound like so bad that everyone starts booing, like I don't give a shit. I want it to sound like I like it to sound like. I'm not saying like ignore the rules, but like literally I've had somebody from the Dojo master music. I've had Dylan look at music, ill.Gates. I've had my mastering guy, a bunch of friends. Evan, you've looked at it. Tesco, I think all of you have looked at it. Literally, I also had Ahi help me with the song. All of them, no matter how well they're done, and many of the people I just listed know way more than me. I'm like, yeah, it might be correct, but I don't like how it sounds. I like how mine sounds. As long as your kick is sidechained well and comes through, and your snare, as far as I'm concerned, everything else is like up for debate.
Yeah, that's literally why I've come to the same conclusion. Like I now master all my own stuff too. Same thing as you. I've had my stuff mastered by many other people, and there's usually like 2 or 3 versions, and each one is like, oh, I like this one, but then there's this moment that doesn't work right, and then like this kick clips, and I don't know how you didn't hear that, but like I can hear it, and like then you got to go through like gently emailing them back like, hey, like this this needs to change, and like they ran it through all this analog outboard gear, and then it's like a huge hassle for them to do it again, but it's like your art and you fucking care about the little stuff, and then you have to force them to go through this other unfortunate process, and it's like like you said, like maybe in the end it'll be 5%, 2%, 3% less polished, but I know for a fact it'll be something that I'm comfortable with all aspects of. And if I notice something like past when I sent it to mastering, I could just go in and like fix it real quick.
Right.
Like that. And the fact that I'm on no one else's deadline to release that song. Like it's mixed, and like I'm the only one to blame if it doesn't come out on my timeline. I totally agree with you. It's like the quality at a certain point is not necessarily gonna make a difference, but like it sounding the way you want it to will make a bigger difference to you in the end, I think.
Sure. I mean, there's even like a couple artists who everyone knows who their old stuff is not anywhere near as well mixed and mastered, and I just prefer that stuff. I just like that sound more. Everyone's always talking about like gritty mixes or like mixes that aren't so clean. I'm like, yeah, that's what I like.
I mean, lo-fi hip-hop is built on that, right?
Yeah.
It's like, the drums could be more smacking. Yeah, turn them down.
Well,
add more noise.
Part of maybe where the misconceptions come from is like you watch all these tutorials and it's like how to get clean mix downs, 10 tips for cleaner mix downs, and then you associate like, oh, okay, so cleaner means better. And then it'll be, people showing you like, like EQ out all your resonances and like filter everything, and you start to do that and you realize, hey, I'm making aggressive music, and my processing choices, my mixing choices, my mastering choices are not aggressive. And for me, I don't know why it took me so long to learn like, oh yeah, I'm not going to hit -4, -5 LUFs unless I'm doing stuff aggressively. I'm not going to get these fat in your face basses unless you push things really hard. And I think it's just the terminology of like, get a balanced mix down or get a clean mix down that like kind of, trips up, producers. And I went through that phase myself.
I think we all did.
Yeah. I don't know if you resonate with that, but like definitely there was a bit of like unlearning there too, where it's like I'm making this genre that didn't exist, 30, 40 years ago, when people were kind of setting all the rules and rules and using all this old technology, and you kind of realize like, oh, actually it's all this unconventional stuff that makes this unconventional genre.
Yeah.
The other thing too, this is anecdotal evidence, but like a year ago, I had run into some girl who listened to my music, and the topic of what's your favorite song came up, and she listed, it was Grit. I think it was for one of your ciphers.
Yeah, boy, that song's a banger.
No, but when I think about it, I'm like, comparatively to anything newer, that song was like when I was like caveman status at producing, and I'm like, it's still this person's favorite song, so like whatever, that's fine.
Yeah. It's you almost got to get out of your own way sometimes. Like I forget who was talking about it, but they're like, in the like industrial age or whatever, information was like the scarce resource, and the more information you had, it's like the better you could do for yourself. Now there's so much information, you got to sift through it with a fine-tooth comb and really find like, does this mixing advice from this guy mixing boomer dad rock actually apply to my dubstep? Or bass music, whatever.
Dude, that's literally so funny you mentioned that. Like for the longest time, when I was maybe like a year and a half into production, I just figured the only reason my music wasn't good because it wasn't professionally mixed. So wrong to begin with. But I was like, okay, well, mixing is just engineering, right? It's just math. Like I should be able to book smart my way into this. Like if I learn all the things, like it'll sound good. And so every day on the way to and home from work, driving my car, I would listen to as many mix videos from this one thing, like Recording Revolution or something silly. And it was like this dude mixing like Christian rock. And I took everything he said for face value. Like on a live really recorded
Christian rock advice.
I don't think that maybe, but he like literally was like in a live recorded kick drum, compress it and then take 400 hertz out of it because that's a real muddy, flubby bit of the kick. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay, compress my kick and then take 400 hertz out.
Every kick.
It's like, Jesus Christ, man. Did you even listen to the kick you did that on? No, I didn't at all. But I was like, that's the thing. Like you think you're learning all this stuff and really you just got to, at the end of the day, trust your ears and trust your taste and just massage it in the right direction until it's there.
Also, shout out Seth Drake's course. That was also very helpful. I still cannot get my mixes sounding like he can. However, I'm learning.
I mean, that's
soothe too, baby. Slap it on 5 soothes on every channel. You're set.
Dude, Seth doesn't even use soothe. And when he does, I'm like, no, dude, those are not the right settings. But
whenever I'm watching his thing, like a lot of the times he's like, oh, can you hear that? Let's fix it. And I'm like, okay, yes, I can hear it. But sometimes he's just doing something. He's like, oh, I can hear this. And I'm like, I can't hear shit. It sounds exactly the same as 3 seconds ago. And he's like, no, the curve. And I'm like, yeah, the curve. Okay.
No, literally, that literally ties back into what I just said too, which is like, it's all time and getting accustomed and like training your ears to hear these little things. So his intuition is so fucking spot on. When he hears something and he starts moving the cue on the EQ and like dipping out this one thing, like he's going to be pretty fucking close before he even like swishes it around and tries to find the right spot, because he hears this trigger in his head and these like buildup of like frequencies or whatever. And he knows like pretty close, like where that's going to be and how to fix it. And that's just time and like mixes. And like, you got to put in the reps to get that good. You got to
do a lot of mixes. And I think that's one thing where a lot of people get stuck is sticking on the same mix for too long. Like you said, I love what you said about you start the song, you fall in love with it, you get so excited, you listen to it, you fix it, you finish it.
Yeah.
And then you move on to the next song. And maybe, I don't know, if you're like, it's 6 months before the song comes out, maybe right before you upload it, you go back in and make a couple of tweaks. I usually do that like after I've been sitting on a song for a while. But if I hadn't gone and made all the other songs in between, I wouldn't have been able to make any tweaks to that song that meant anything, because I would still be the same producer that made those mistakes.
Yeah, and you're doing the same thing. You said you hadn't seen it or listened to it for a while, and then you go back and you tweak it. That's like the same process on a longer time frame of what I was talking about. You just hear it and you're like, oh yeah, I thought I liked that. That needs to go or change or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. But getting those reps in with different songs. Like, I tell this story a lot. I don't think people are tired of it. If they are, fuck them. I love this story. But I sat in with the 25-year veteran mixing engineer in Atlanta named Amon Jackson. And he's got like tracks on the radio on big, industry rap records. And he's like, man, you know what? Every 3 months, I can listen to a 3-month-old mix and figure out how I could have done it better after 25 years. And I was like, oh my God, that just took so much pressure off me. Thank you. Thank you for saying those words. Just like a little off the cuff remark at the very end of a 2-hour jam packed full of information lesson. And then he just drops this little gem on the end that just like sets me free. Like, oh, thank you. I needed that. You're always going to keep getting better.
The other thing is having like 20 songs you're working on at the same time. It just like gives me anxiety.
Yeah.
I do it anyway, but like I way prefer to do one at a time. Maybe you just let one die or whatever, but one at a time. Too many collabs. Yeah,
I burnt myself out on it like last spring. I was like working on about 20 songs, and I was like drafting them, and then after a minute, I was like, you know what? I think I hate all of these songs. I've lost all perspective and all joy, and I'm just not going to listen to any of these for like 3 months. We'll see what happens.
Yeah,
a couple of them might still come out.
While I'm in the finishing phase of this album, it's literally just like music producer hell, because I've I have a set deadline for all this shit to get done, and like I don't have time to write new music, and I have to like force myself to do like the mixing and the engineering and all the shit that's like less fun about making music. And I like took for granted so much when I could just finish a song and release that one, and then finish the next one and then release that one. And like when you're trying to like just finish and there's like no time for writing, like you just got to finish this shit. It's like, it's too much, man. You
just reminded me the other day, before I like finally was like, oh, I can write music again. I was like, man, I don't know what it is, but I was going to start doing ciphers again. I don't know if you guys are still doing those, but I was like, I kind of liked it. You just decide when you want to do one.
Yeah.
And then do it, and like nothing else matters.
Yeah.
And then there's a deadline, and you have to ignore that track. And there's like, did it make it or not? Whatever, I'll find out in a while. Now I just forget that track exists. Like somebody hit me up. It was Tula Fire hit me up on Facebook. He's like, yo, I'm so excited that you're on the Dwelm tape with me. I'm like, did I do something with Dwelm? What was it? And then I like got the email from Spiderhound, and I looked at it, I was like, oh, that song. I totally did submit to that cipher. This is kind of dope.
That's awesome.
Turns out I made it.
That's funny.
I had no idea. Though, I just saw that Gus dropped Amon Jackson's website link in the chat for everybody, and a quote came up with the website. It says, 90% of engineering is spent listening. The other 10% is spent preparing to listen.
Yeah,
I love
Sounds
that.
All right.
I wanted to make sure we got back to this one question that Kerfuffle dropped in the chat. And he said he's curious about workflow. So like super interested in, how often you are focused around mud pies or 128s or sparks or project templates, and like how your workflow is oriented.
All right, so I'm excited to answer this. Here's how this goes. I've heard separate sound design from songwriting. That's good advice. Make mud pies. That's good advice. All the good advice I've heard like that, I have attempted to do and follow. The way I write music, though, is somewhere around like 9 p.m. usually on like a Friday or Saturday. I'll smoke a little bit of weed, and then I'll sit down at my computer and open Ableton. Either this is like if I'm starting something fresh, or like I'll have a song that I'm going to work on. But Yeah, usually I will start with picking a BPM, whatever I'm feeling at the time, anywhere between 135 and like 180. But we can go out those directions too. It doesn't matter. You just pick one, and then you're like, all right, I need some kind of inspiration. So I open Serum or just scroll through like some drums. And then I just literally scroll until a sound itches that like, I'm high, this sounds so cool itch. And then I'll be like, whoa. And then I'll put it in Ableton in arrangement view. And then usually that is how like a song starts. A lot of the time it's like some combination of a drum loop and bass. And then I'm like, okay, now I have like a danceable thing. Let me try and turn this into a song. You know, you're adding arps and synths and vocals, and I guess that is the other part of the workflow. Almost always is drums and bass first. I write drops first. I almost never write intros first anymore. I don't know why. It's also very hard to work backwards for me. So sometimes that bites me in the ass, but like get something that sounds cool, tweak it, write a variation of that, make sure it connects, write an intro for that, and then you just like keep going. Usually I'm trying to think of order of importance. It's like drums and bass, maybe synths and melodies on top if I'm doing that, intros, some type of vocal theme if there's vocals in the song, then try and write a second drop. And then the majority of my time though is spent after I have like the 10 different elements, synths, arps, cymbals, kick, snare, bass, all that shit, is like trying to write it in a linear fashion that makes sense, is varied enough, connects properly, is exciting, makes you want to dance. It's just like most of the time is spent adjusting shit or like seeing if you can make something sound cooler. Sometimes like that part is sick and in the pocket and perfect, then you don't touch it anymore. It's also sometimes very hard to half the time the first thing you write is the best. Like so you can work on it 10 more times and the first you're just like, oh fuck it, the first one was better. Also, the third drop, if you're writing, normally songs are like 2 drops ish. If you write like a second or a third drop, that's going to be the best drop. I don't know what it is for me. The first drop I write is like cool enough, but it's more like a bridge or a C section. Second drop is way heavier. Third drop is the one, and then you got to move it back and readjust the whole fucking song again because like it doesn't lead into the drop right.
Dude, the chat is absolutely loving all this advice. So many people are like, oh my god, like thank god I'm not the only one that ignores good advice and like works backwards to the recommended way. And like, so
dude, I've tried all of them. I understand. I'm a software developer / computer person. I understand on a logical level why all of these things are good ideas, and you would think that they work. For me personally, I just can't fucking do it. To me, writing music is a wholeheartedly creative thing, and like all logic is just gone when I'm doing it. That's why I write better music when I'm like half asleep at night or getting tired or baked. I never drink and write music or anything, but like if I'm thinking about it, it's going to be bad.
No,
I have to just like feel it.
Yeah, I think it's like so important to hammer home that there's no one right way to do literally anything in the entire process. Like I remember like
unless
7
it's 5 OTTs on the
you
master.
could do that
that's
if it sounds
good.
No,
that's the only right way. I'm sorry. 5 OTTs on the master and every track.
Between 5 and 8.
I don't use OTT a lot. I don't use
OTT at all. I've literally actually never used OTT in my life.
I've been moving away from it. It's a hot, controversial topic, but
dude,
if you can distort right, you don't need it.
I don't think I understand how to use it properly. The one I use the most often is the one in Serum to like bring out.
That's the worst one.
The top ends or
no,
whatever.
It's not the worst one. It has its own special flavor. The thing about that one though is you can't dry wet it at all because for whatever reason it phases like a motherfucker. But it has its own little special little touch. Honestly, you'd be surprised if you shoot out, like if you have this one sound and you're like, okay, it needs to be like brighter and like thicker or whatever, like test the one in Serum at the end of your chain, see how that sounds. Then grab the Ableton OTT preset, try that one, maybe adjust the dry wet, see how that sounds. And then grab like the free OTT plugin that Steve Duda made and like try that one as well and like screw with it. Like they all have their own little unique flavor.
So I have a question for you. So everyone that when they talk about OTT, they're mostly talking about the Ableton preset one, right?
Or the X for one.
Because I've downloaded the X for one. It's got the 3 bars or whatever. Mm-hmm. Its default setting, can you correct me if I'm wrong, that is not the same as the Ableton OTT one, correct?
It's not, yeah.
All right,
it's modeled after it. It's like modeled to be roughly the same, but it's not the same.
No, yeah, I just want to make sure, because when I was very first starting producing, if I like found a sample that I wanted to use as a bass, I'd put OTT on it and then just turn the bottom bar all the way up and then crank the gain.
Good.
Dude,
there's no wrong way.
Honestly, I have songs, it's mostly the older songs, but like I think in Grit, one of the basses is just a bass, and I just like jacked up the OTT on the bottom. I know that's the wrong way to do it. It sounds fine though. It sounds fine.
There's no wrong way.
Yeah.
Like
one quick thing while we're on OTT. Sorry to cut you off, but just for everybody in the chat, if you're struggling with OTT, the secret is the 3 knobs on the right. That's what most people use, and if you're not messing with the time, I don't know if you do this, Alex, but the time knob is what takes OTT from unusable to amazing, and I don't think the X for one has that, and I don't think the Serum one has that. So definitely, it's worth trying, because putting it up to like 1,000%, basically anything not at 100, is going to preserve the actual dynamics of the sound. Okay. So the quiet parts actually stay loud. It's not just like total sausage.
I use the only thing I use the Ableton one on is drums. Like I'll use the time knob on like breaks to like really distort them more or make them sound like washy. But like on any other sound, I grab the free Steve Duda one or whatever.
That's amazing, because the only thing I don't use OTT on is drums. So I literally need to try that.
Like I'll grab like a very nicely recorded but very acoustic break that like just doesn't sound right in a dubstep song. It sounds good in like a jazz song or something.
Yeah.
And then I'll put OTT on it and fuck with the time knob, and then like you can add other effects, but it will make it sound way more electronic and less like a jazz song.
Yeah, I think the other thing about OTT most people forget is if you look at the output knobs on the right of the multiband dynamics, it is like 10.2 for the lows, like 80 and below, so basically just sub, and then like 2.5 kilohertz and up is also 10.2, and then the mids, everything in between from 80 to 2500 hertz is 5 point something. So you're literally, it's as if you compressed it and then added an EQ with shelves. So the lows and the highs are louder. I think that a lot of people assume OTT is just like making it more detailed, but it literally is just adding sub and like adding like a bunch of volume to the high end, 2.5 kilohertz and up, right? So if also like if you have a sound that you liked the frequency range, like the balance, the frequency balance, like you could just put all those knobs to the same and you're going to get less of that effect. But another thing to keep in mind.
Amen.
So I wanted to ask, just because in the beginning you mentioned you were doing some new stuff with your style, you've been inspired to try out new stuff. Just curious, kind of what's been inspiring you? Have you found new artists? Have there been, any moments while producing or collaborating or anything like that really just kind of led for that breakthrough? Just
somebody who I talked to, I really only talked to 2 people in the music industry the entire hiatus I had, and it was Scoobs, who you guys know from the dojo, and my mastering guy, who's a good friend of mine. His name's Chris. I think I talked to Dylan once or twice in there. But holy, even outside of the last year, like I don't want to sound like a pretentious douchebag, but I've been pretty disinterested with like electronic music for a decent period. Like the last 2 years, my interest has just gone like way down. Not writing it, but just like finding new songs. I don't know if it's because I write music now, so I'm not listening as much. Like if I hear a dope song, I still like the song, but like lots of the same. Lots of stuff where I'm like, oh, it's another cool sound design song with the same drums as every other song, and I don't give a shit. I don't know. Like, I'm sure you've heard somebody say at some point in their life, like, how can you listen to electronic music if you're not on drugs? But like, that was slowly becoming like a reality. It's like, I just am not enjoying this. I like listening to like songs, not just sounds, and to each their own. Whatever. I'm not saying one way is better than the other. I just wasn't very inspired by other music. So I don't know. It wasn't even me trying to like find a new sound because like I don't even know what the hell my sound is. Everyone's always telling me, "Oh, it sounds just like an Ung song. This is an Ung banger." No, but I'm like, dude, I'm like, if you go through all my projects, aside from like maybe some reused drums or like vocals or something, the like palette of sounds is completely different in every song. Like there's zero alike unless it's like a song that I started from to rewrite another one. Like I don't think the sound I think it sounds like whatever samples I like at that point in time or something.
It's like the way you arrange them, I can instantly tell. The like you got a specific ear for the sounds you're choosing, you know?
Sure, whatever that is, that's my sound. But as far as like some other people, I'm trying to think of like I don't know. Like I really like Dirt Monkey's music, but he uses like very similar sounds and is just a master at writing them differently over and over again. I don't know how the fuck he does it.
Yeah, it's true.
But like I can't do that. Like once I've used a sound, yeah, sure, maybe in the writing process I figured out like these other cool ways to use it. And I think that's like half the fun is taking one sound and doing something new with it. But like I could not, or I'm trying to think of like a pop song. Like I could never play guitar my whole life. I'm sorry, Evan. I know you like guitar, but like I'd be like, dude,
talk to Tesco. He's the guitarist.
I
just fake it.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, it's not that I don't like guitar, and I appreciate a masterful guitarist, but like I'm just like, dude, it only makes one sound. I need a new sound. I need a new sound.
Well, you need more amps, bro.
Like, I got like filters, amps, like. It just needs to be changing. Like once I've used it in a song, maybe this is an ego thing. I don't know. But when my listeners listening to like a new song, I want them to be wowed every single time. Not that I'm writing it just for them, but like even when I hear a song, if I hear the same sound in a drop from like another artist, I'm like, unless it's like amazing, I'm like, I've already been exposed to this. Mm-hmm. Part of the reason I originally got into electronic music was like, and this is completely anti what I just said, is just hearing new sounds or like new things that I've never heard before or like wild. I don't know. The way my music style has progressed is I've figured out through getting better at making music how to do more things that I had been trying to do but was failing at. So like now in a mix down or compositionally in a song, I think some of my older music that people are like, oh, you just write bangers. I'm like, it's because I don't know how to write melodies or layer arpeggiators and synths on top of my basses. It's not because I don't want to. And now that I'm getting better at doing it, I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm kind of using my bass as like the chord progression, but it's usually not chords, it's like notes. And then I can like use the same notes in an arpeggiator. Ableton's cheating. You don't need to know anything. You can just like with very minimal knowledge be like duplicate, arpeggiators, fucking effects. Wow, like it's like a new thing. I don't know. That's I don't.
Yeah,
I'm
the
going
MIDI
off
effects
on a
are
tangent.
super useful for that.
They're very useful.
There's so many guitar gods out there that couldn't make a dubstep banger to save their life. It's like, who was it you were quoting the other week, Tesco, about you can either...
I think it was Steve Vai or something. I think we gave him creds like 10 times, so if it's not him, it's awkward now.
It doesn't
but
matter.
yeah, it was just Steve
listening.
Vai. You don't know that. But he said, he was like, you could either be good at all the things or have a style.
That's the thing, good. Right? You pick the things that you like to hear to get good at first, and then you ran with them, and you're adding pieces as you go. That's how you pick a style, and then how you evolve a style.
Yeah.
And what is beautiful. Yeah. It's beautiful. You're doing your favorite shit that you want to do, and as you evolve, it evolves little by little, but it's still you. That's dope. Mm-hmm.
One of the new parts to my style that I was already doing with other sounds, but I've been doing a lot recently. Lots of bendy, lots of bends, all kinds of bends, arps bending, synths bending, drums bending, vocals bending, and then like I don't know, whatever the relationship between instruments is. I used to play snare drum in school. They like give you your sheet music. They're like, all right, play along with the band. But as you're playing, any drummer who is in band knows you're like, I'm doing whatever the fuck I want, but I'm going to make it sound good. Like you play as you're supposed to, but you like improvise in between to make it more fun. That's like, I think that's kind of like how I like to write cool melodies, or like, the ARP interacting with the drums, or the bass and the drums, or the synth and the bass, or the vocals and the bass. Then there's, polyrhythms, but I'm never thinking like, what would go really sick right here? Like a polyrhythm. You just like hear it. You just like hear it as it's happening. I know some people are like, yeah, I'm putting a polyrhythm here. This is for sure what's supposed to happen. I don't know how to fucking do that. I just like test it, and then I'll hear it and be like, that's it.
Amen.
I wish I could have you three in a studio writing music for me. And I was just sitting in a chair, and I'm like, nope, that was it. Go back, do that one. And then that's how how I'd prefer to write music.
Falcon. Everybody's at the station.
To me, Ableton and synths and whatever are just in my way of getting what I hear like into a wave.
Well, you see that Neuralink announcement?
I did not.
Oh, well, they're starting trials on Neuralink this year, so maybe we get Ableton compatibility.
There is no way I'm plugging my brain into a computer. Maybe I'm a boomer. I'm not fucking doing that.
Especially not in the beta test.
What do you mean? You think something could go horribly wrong and we could end up in an iRobot situation?
If it comes from Apple, Microsoft, Tesla, Oracle, or any of those companies, I want no fucking part in it at all.
Oh, yeah. Your friend Gus has the name of the show where you just tell us what to produce. It's called Backseat Producer with Unc.
Yeah, no,
I'd actually love that. That sounds like a
even
fun
Styler
show.
wants to get plugged into the Matrix. But yo, we're coming up on time. So Unc, tell the people how to get a hold of you on the interwebs.
Don't get a hold of me on the internet. I will put out music and you will listen to it.
In a way where you don't have to respond to them on the internet.
You can. Twitter is Unc Music. I think Instagram's also Unc Music.
UHNK.
Facebook, yeah, UHNK Music. SoundCloud is UHNK. Pretty easy to find. A lot harder to get a hold of.
Yeah, don't blow up the man's inbox unless he asks you to. All right, he's a busy dude.
I'm friendly, and I usually answer questions. One last thing before we leave, because I wrote this down, and I don't think we've really talked too much about mixing. Something amazing that I learned recently, I forgot who I read said this, but when you're cutting out shit from sounds, I don't care what the rules say. Normally, get rid of the very, very lows, but as soon as you start cutting out of the sound and it no longer sounds like what sounded cool, just fucking put those frequencies back. You don't have to high cut it because somebody told you to. Just leave it how it sounded cool when you were scrolling through the browser playing your song, and then only cut up to there. Once it starts changing, just fucking leave it. I don't care if there's something else in the way. If it sounds good there, just leave it there.
I agree completely. It's something I followed, that whack ass rule of high pass everything, and then Dylan had to break me of that habit last year when he like showed me how much my high pass filters were fucking up all my sounds.
It makes stuff sound really thin.
Yeah, it's like brittle and just like the roundness. And it's like if you can't hear, it's like oh, but there's the little rumbly bass in there. Yeah, at negative 56 decibels. Let it be.
Yeah.
The chat just wants really quick your home phone number, address, and if you're available at 3 a.m. on Sunday.
Yeah, maybe social security number too while we're at it for the fans.
Yeah, can you fax them a copy of the passport?
Yeah.
And a hair sample for the voodoo doll.
Well, yeah, never mind. I was gonna make a comment, but never mind.
It requires no response. No,
we're good. I think we're about done here. So let's give the people a peace.
Peace.
And
see you guys.
A peace among worlds.
There you go.
Peace, humans.
Bye bye. Love y'all. Thanks for coming.
All right, humans, thank you so much for being with us again today. Make sure you head over to thehumanmusicpodcast.com to find our socials, some free sound packs, and more episodes. You can support our sponsors while you're down there, like Dojo TV. That's free producer live stream classes from the Producer Dojo Senseis. And in fact, this very episode was recorded live over there. You could have been asking questions. Tesco's Patreon's up next. Tesco's launched a Patreon channel where you can get educational content, project files, behind the scenes footage, as well as access to his private Discord, track feedback, and private lessons. The weekly download is where you can learn from ill.Gates and his private weekly group lessons and get access to over 250 more episodes in the archive for just $20 a month, and guest practices where you can learn from Seth Drake at the Approach Institute. He is the best engineer we know, and your first class over there is free. That song of the week you hear behind me is ill.Gates and Trapezoid. So make sure you go support that, run that up. If you want that for your DJ collection, we got Bandcamp and Beatport links to buy it down there, and your favorite streaming services as well. All right, till next week, humans. Peace and peace among worlds. I like it.